This is Michael with Digital T-Shirt Shop. We are going to hook up my stuff. Okay, this is going to be hooking up my stuff part one. What I'm hoping is that after today I have hooked up the printer and tested it. I've hooked up the speed treater and tested it, and we're able to print. So I figured what I would do is I thought about it that I would go ahead and do this in a series of videos. And so as I stop and start the video, as I go through different parts of this, I will let you know. I'll start it by parts. I'll somehow break it up somehow so that it seems to work. So part number one, I needed to get my room controlled climately. So I needed to have humidity and heat. So the first thing I had to do, I had to make sure my room was enclosed. I still do have a few issues. And I'm going to take the camera off the tripod to show you. Number one was my door. I do have the door on now with a door handle. And I don't have the problem I was having before with the springiness. It actually does close. I got a casing around the outside of the door so that I don't have heat escaping. I still do have one issue. I got my internet changed, and I had to put a hole in the ceiling where the phone line actually comes in. I do have some issues where I've got big windows that let in a lot of cold from outside, and in Utah right now it's probably about 20 degrees outside, between 20 and 30 degrees. So with two big windows, 1 and 2, that lets in quite a bit of cold. If you come over and you look at the setting right now on here, we're looking at 31% humidity and 68 degrees. And what I'm trying to do is just get it where it's close to 70. So what I've done is I've brought in a space heater. I don't know if I'm going to keep using this one because I want to make sure that I'm safe with my space heater. And I would like one that would actually just shut off once it hit a certain temperature, and this one doesn't do that. This one just stays on perpetually. But my heat is coming in. I've got the humidity coming through. The humidity's coming through the furnace. And I do have an additional space heater. I mean, not a space heater, an additional humidifier. So this is what I've got right here is a Bryant humidifier that's actually right on the furnace. And what it does is it'll kick on and it'll pull the air in to this humidifier and then humidify the air as it pushes it out. And actually, interestingly, I have that set at 30%, which may be why it's at 30%. I'm going to turn it up to 35 and see if tomorrow morning that makes a difference. But if you remember from my video the other day, I did actually, it was set at 40%. And if I remember right, it was actually staying at about 40%. On my gauge, but we were having some issues with frosting on the windows upstairs, and so I turned it down to 30% to see if that stopped. And to tell you honestly, I forgot to look at the windows and make sure that it made a difference. So I am curious how much of that humidity is actually making it into this room. I do have a separate humidifier that I can keep it humidified with that will turn on and off based on the humidity in the room. It's a larger, I want to say a 5-gallon humidifier, so that it doesn't have to be filled quite so often. And I've used it for a long time. You know, so much that I bought a second one that was the same brand and same model. I don't have it in here right now, so I'm not going to worry about showing you. I can show you another time. But I do know that with print head clogging, you know, and the machines drying out, that humidity ends up being very, very important, and especially in a dry climate like I live. I have lived back east. I lived in New York. I lived in Brooklyn and Queens for a couple of years on a LDS mission, and so I really know what humidity feels like. I remember what it was like being back there and living in a very humid climate. It is completely different than here. And in fact, a lot of the people that I know that have come from there and come here to Utah end up, you know, with really dry sinuses and even some nose bleeding and things like that, because the climate is so dry here. And it does take a little bit of getting used to. I love it because I always feel dry. I don't like that get out of the shower and dry off and still feel wet feeling. And so it's, for me, it's really nice, but at the same time in here it doesn't work with what I'm doing. So I've got to have the humidity. So those are the kind of the things I've done. So climate controlled in here, I can finally do that. So I think I can go ahead and turn on the machines now. So that was part one, getting the room ready and climate controlled and everything. Now the first thing I think that I need to do is I need to set up the printer, and I'll get that ready.